Now then, my friends, today we have a reporting meeting on the Project Gold of Kyrgyzstan. Ramil will be in charge today. He will ask questions and Yuri and I will answer. 80% of the questions are probably for Yuri. Regarding the transfer, all paperwork-related questions, to me, our team will be reporting. It's worth starting with the fact that it's been a year. It's gone by rather quickly. We entered the deal exactly in July 2022, in the midst of events of uncertainty. I would like to say that our investment has already worked for sure, because exactly a year ago, the dollar cost about 59 rubles, and today it is 92 rubles. Even if we just convert dollars into rubles, we have already grown by 60, 70%. Quite a significant difference. Ramil, you have the floor. Ask questions.
Okay, thank you. First question, why did you have to change the original plan of the road to the field?
Colleagues, I greet you too. As we are doing a stream for DAO ARK investors, I am pleased and proud to announce that I am now on DAO ARK land in Karator. I have separated from the main group to spend time with you and answer your questions. DAO ARK as a whole is a great idea, cool people, and very, very good implementation. Super cool format. I congratulate all of us for being DAO ARK members. That's how I wanted to start my welcome address. Now back to the question of why they did not start building the road last year. The answer is very simple, and it's in numbers, in money. In the beginning, we planned to make a road to get the large volume sample out of there. If you remember, we had this idea. This idea still persists, but it has undergone a transformation. The question is why? Because after we made the deal, received the field and the primary documentation, about 90 kilos of paper in small print, numbers, etc., our design team started to analyze it all. Then it became clear that the data set is such that it is not so easy to identify a specific place where to take these 5,000 tons of sample. Perhaps in parallel, I will answer another question you have in your mind. A large volume sample is taken in order to conduct technological tests. Investors, of course, have the primary goal of taking some amount of gold from this large volume sample and making a profit, but that's just investors' goal. If you look at the long term, it is much more important and profitable to make this sample relevant and representative, so that it reflects all the content, all the rock peculiarities across the deposit, so that we can select the most efficient technology to extract gold, copper, and silver from our ore. The meaning of technological sample is technological testing to determine the methodology and technology to extract useful metals from the entire volume of the ore. We have a skarn type of occurrence. This means that valuable ore of different shapes and sizes is localized among just rocks. All of this should be analyzed as thoroughly as possible to transport from there at the lowest possible cost. You have to understand that 5,000 tons is 5 million kilos. High in the mountains, at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers, it is quite costly to extract, transport, and send to the plant 5 million kilos. It's labor-intensive and financially very costly. I too am anxious, honestly, to get my first money in my pocket as soon as possible. It's a simple worldly truth. I really want to, but common sense tells me to be patient for a while. We need to calculate everything in advance so that when we start extracting the technological sample, it will be as reliable as possible. We need to identify those points at different locations in the field that will be most informative for the overall calculations. Now the designers have already completed the design of the quarry. They have calculated for us 8 options for quarry development so that we could determine the most cost-effective option from our point of view. As for the road, we could have built it last year, but if we build a road and don't transport anything there, it's an unwise waste of money. It should be understood that during winter in the mountains, all roads without exception are destroyed. Not completely, but to some degree, high up in the mountains, to a very significant degree. We decided that we would build the road when we had everything measured accurately. Remember, you gotta look before you leap. It is very tempting to cut off a piece of gold first and put it in your pocket. Then when you realize how much it costs, what it entails, and what risks it carries if you rashly try to cut off a piece of gold and put it in your pocket. As we are responsible to you, we realize that we should better not. There will be a bright flash today. A slice of dividends, but we may get a fair amount of problems in the future. Of course, it is advisable to stick to a fundamental approach. As a result, we postponed the construction of the road until we understand exactly what kind of road we need, where it should go, and what we will transport on it, so that we don't spend too much money, so that every expenditure is reasonable and shortens our journey from the beginning to the first dividends. I kind of said everything about the road. If there are any questions along the way, I am ready to answer. I don't see the comments yet. Perhaps, Ramil, you see them.
No comments so far. It's all clear to everyone?
Okay, then let's move on.
All right. Then the next question is, how does changing plans affect the company and investor returns? Basically, you have already partially answered that.
By and large, it doesn't really affect much because there is a design phase that is unavoidable. Here we got our hands on a license. It was a very powerful action. I'm really glad we got that opportunity at that time. I told you about the 90 kilograms of waste paper that we received. After careful study by good specialists, we discovered the possibility to increase the balance reserves without conducting field work. I'm sure you know. It was definitely in the news that we did some serious work, paid $1 million of tax to the state, but increased the balance reserves 5 times, thereby increasing the capitalization of the company 5 times with one action. That's pretty cool. But I deviated from the topic. How does it affect the company's performance? It does not affect it much because the design planning was originally included, and it's always so because it's a very expensive industry. Extremely serious, certainly with very, very impressive margins, but it requires prudence. We need to look 7 times, or better yet, look 15 times and let other people double-check our actions before we leap. And only then act, because the risks are in the magnitude of millions of dollars. So it's not a 1-day or 1-month design process. It's quite a long period of time. In the beginning, we expected that we would make the road quickly, while the designers are designing, take the upper layer, extract everything quickly and run away. And when they will finish designing, we will already have everything ready. But as we analyzed the materials deeper, it became clear that it's not so simple, but it's better not to hurry and approach it more carefully. But nevertheless, it did not affect the overall process of the company development. We remain within our projected timeline.
Got it, thank you. A question appeared on the stream. Congratulations, everyone. DAO ARK's second dividend was paid yesterday. This includes $20,000 from Gold Karator. If there's no extraction and processes, why were dividends paid?
Because we are honest people. We promised to do it, and we did it out of our own pocket. The answer is very simple and honest.
Thank you. Okay, then let's move on to the next question. With country of incorporation being changed to the UAE, how does this affect the project? How might it affect the project in the future?
I'm redirecting the question to Evgeny.
It's actually a rather broad question. Let me start with why it's good and then why it's taking so long. I simply see this question has not been asked, but it may be on your mind. Let me start with the first one, why it's a good thing. I will assume that you have not seen some of the news. As it turned out, not all the news came through. This decision is due to the fact that in summer, just 2 months after the organization of Ingro Joint Stock Company, a number of checks were initiated simply due to the fact that it is a rather large transaction. The checks were from the Russian side by the Economic Crimes Department. We have passed all those tests. We had people coming to our office asking for tons of documentation. We showed the documents with all the investors, showed licenses and so on. This test was passed, but it cost us no small amount of nerves. It lasted almost half a year. I guess it's finally over. Nobody notifies there, of course. Checking authorities disappear suddenly and reappear suddenly, disappear and reappear. That's the first reason why we decided that something had to be done. The second reason, it is obvious that after putting large reserves on the balance sheet, the cost of the project has radically increased, and it will attract even more unhealthy interest from checking authorities and others. The project is quite public, overly public. It's a big disadvantage for the project that 600 people in DAO ARK know about it, and everyone has told their friends, acquaintances, and relatives about it. It's hard enough not to brag about being the owner of a gold mining operation. As a result, several thousand people know about this project, which is quite insecure, especially in the Russian jurisdiction. A good investor always ponders the entry and exit points. When we were thinking about the future of the project and doing the strategy session, we thought about the fact that the jurisdiction of the Russian Federation is quite toxic for most international companies and investors. That is, the interaction itself with the Russian company will have big problems. We could only realize this deal in Russia after all. Let me remind you that the basic conditions are that all investors are in Russia, and we must land in Russian legislation and put together a legal structure there that will absolutely legally own the Kyrgyz license. When we realized that it would be extremely difficult to get out of the deal at the expense of investors who would not be able to join us in the future, or would be able to do so with great difficulty, and this would significantly reduce the valuation of the company, we decided to relocate to the Arab Emirates because we get 3 advantages at once at this point. Advantage number 1, no inspections by the Russian Federation, Kyrgyzstan, and the resolution of all legal issues in the Arab Emirates, where, as you understand, the judicial system works somewhat differently. The second advantage, liquidity. Our product is now on the market as a company, available not only to the Russian buyer, but also to any other buyer. It's a completely white jurisdiction. The linkage is as follows. A Dubai company owns a company in Kyrgyzstan. As a matter of fact, it is a completely transparent design that is clear to the international buyer. The third benefit, the company's valuation increases at this point. That is, a company based in Russia and a company based in Dubai, all other parameters being equal, have completely different valuations, precisely because it has higher liquidity, it's safer and so on. Just like real estate in a provincial Russian town and in the center of the Arab Emirates costs differently, although it's the same bricks, glass, and so on. It's just a different country, so the assessment is different. Moving to the Arab Emirates allows us to grow by a factor of 2 to 3 by the most conservative estimates, just by fact of transfer alone. Here are the reasons behind the decision to move to the Arab Emirates.
Thank you. I suggest we move on to the next question.
I beg your pardon. I did not answer the second part of the question. This is very important. I will show you the letter of April 26, why it took so long to happen. We made this decision in November, December, and we still have not finalized the transfer. There are two factors here. The first is lack of investor understanding. It took us a very long time to get the paperwork together. As of today, it is 60 people who should have new style foreign passports. Only then it is possible to transfer all investors to the Arab Emirates. There are persons who stubbornly refuse to get these passports done, literally 2, 3 people. We had to make a decision, either to buy their shares out or to persuade them very hard. We can move without 1 or 2 people. We can only move together. By the way, this is another risk of being in the Russian Federation, because Arab law here is more flexible and it allows for more convenient procedures. The first reason is the delayed collection of documents. We spent a lot of effort and time, but the situation is much better there. Literally 2 or 3 people were holding us back. But the main factor is the potential for a big tax to appear, because essentially the license holder was changing at that point. We negotiated for a long time about how to make sure the tax would not turn up. We corresponded with the authority, and for a long time we kept receiving non-committal answers. Sometime later we received a letter from the Ministry of Economy and Commerce of the Kyrgyz Republic, in connection with which fact, in case of change of ownership in the authorized capital of the enterprise as a result of reorganization, transfer of 100% of shares to the spun-off legal entity through universal legal succession, tax obligations to pay the bonus tax do not arise. Our lawyers were pushing for this formulation that we would not get the tax, and the tax, at a conservative estimate, would have been in the neighborhood of $1 million. The law was written in such a way that it was absolutely not obvious whether we would or would not pay. So the way it would be interpreted by the person in office is the way it would turn out. We would either pay it or we would not. We could not take that risk.
We know exactly how that person would have interpreted it. If given the freedom to interpret, the interpretation would be in their favor. That's obvious.
Yes, 100%, because given that we have made the largest contribution in a long time to this region. Remember that thank you letter they sent us?
Yes, colleagues, I met with the head of the district administration of the district where the field is located. He said the revenue you gave us in 2020 was more than the entire district budget for that year. Imagine their annual district budget is 72 million, and we paid them 84 million. So they say they are ready to support us in every way, and if any questions arise, call them immediately. They're in dire need of such developers and subsoil users because their district is agrarian, and you can't get much revenue from agrarians. I am telling you in detail so that you understand that such a conjuncture is in our favor.
I see that there is some shortage of news, so I want to show you this letter. It is in our archives. Here it is, the thank you letter. Atbashi District State Administration issues such letters for direct participation in replenishing the state budget for disciplined and timely payment. We are very valuable personnel for Atbashi Village.
This is Atbashi District. It is not a village, but a district.
Accordingly, we expect the long move to be over in the summer and fall. Nevertheless, as a business person who is used to specific deadlines, I take these legal issues almost as a personal insult. I'm having a hard time dealing with them, just as you do. I am genuinely suffering because the primary deadlines were in the spring. Due to the fact that we received our tax confirmation on April 26, everything moved to the summer. In the summer, it also happens extremely slowly. The response time for any paperwork is 20 to 30 days. My expectation is the fall of 2023. I really hope it doesn't creep further, but that's probably the one thing we can't be responsible for in this situation, simply because all the legalities and government bodies are beyond any acceleration. However, we are as ready for this as possible. All documents, all investors have been ready for a long time since January. In fact, the ball is now on the side of the lawyers, because Kyrgyzstan gave the go-ahead to withdraw with this letter. We are currently on the side of the United Arab Emirates, waiting for confirmation. An account in Dubai has not yet been opened. It can only be opened after the registration of the company. Now, in the United Arab Emirates, you can't just open an account, but this is a solvable problem. And we don't need an account so much, because all active events take place on the territory of Kyrgyzstan. The company in the United Arab Emirates will only be the holder of the license and the owner of the Kyrgyz company, which has its own account. It's a question of ownership, not operations, so opening an account in Dubai doesn't hold us back in any way. There are also alternative options to open an account in Armenia, Georgia, and so on. In other jurisdictions, they are happy to open accounts for Dubai companies. I think I've already taken a long time to answer that question.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. You have already partially answered it. I will read it out. At what stage is the transition to the UAE jurisdiction? How many people have not submitted documents yet? Is there a responsible person for collecting documents? And when will this initiative reach its final stage? You've already talked about the final stage, now you can just add something.
I still hope the final stage will be summer-autumn. We have 40 days of summer, and I really hope everything happens within that time frame, because there is nothing holding us back, except for the regulations of the United Arab Emirates on reorganization. All participants in the process are interested in making this happen quickly. Even the lawyers, to whom the money has been paid, need to hand over their work faster. Those who could submit documents already did it. Those investors who don't want to are faced with the choice of making a passport or selling shares at par. I don't see a problem here either, nothing to add.
Okay, I suggest we move on to the next question. Why Karator's license can't be accessed through online resources? The same question applies to the Gems of Kyrgyzstan project.
That's more of a question for me. I can say that previously it was possible to access it. I will return to Bishkek now and I will try to see for myself. We will give the community direct links to these resources. You can call the Ministry of Geology, tell them the license number. I think there is such a procedure if you have any doubts. It is a surprise for me that they can't be accessed. It always worked before.
Let me show you why they can't be accessed. We go to the list of valid licenses, that's why. Comments are unnecessary, I think.
No one can access it all over Kyrgyzstan.
Why they can't be accessed, that's why. It's just that Kyrgyzstan's website doesn't work properly. We would love to show you, but it's just basically a feature that doesn't work right now.
That's the most convincing answer we can give.
We would have loved to show you this process. We accessed the license ourselves because we needed it for the vendors. Many times we needed it.
The fact is that all the papers are directly based in the ministries. This is a whole procedure because the subsoil owned by the state is an extremely serious matter. It is impossible to dig in the ground and produce something without the permission of the state, because they will immediately come and at least stop the work, and we will all go to a new place of residence much less comfortable than now. They will just put us in jail if we try to mine anything without actually having a valid permit.
I will leave the link to Open Geology website. You can try it yourself. You won't be able to open anything either. Once the site is back up and running, I am sure you will be able to access everything. I see Sergey's question. How do ARKcoin holders move to a new jurisdiction? ARKcoin holders are not affected by this problem. In fact, ARKcoin is a derivative of the project, a derivative of the stock. The actual shares are owned by me as trustee. You basically trust me, and ARKcoin is issued based on this. I am the responsible party here. I am moving with all the shareholders into this jurisdiction. In the future, I think, in the jurisdiction of the United Arab Emirates, we will allocate this share belonging to ARKcoin to Ivan Limarev or to any other representative of the community. I mean, this is actually what was intended. We wanted to do it in Russian jurisdiction. Now we will do it in Arab jurisdiction. So ARKcoin owners are not affected. All right, let's move on.
Thank you. Let's go to the next question. Can we see the factory blueprints and other photo or video footage to prove that the activity is ongoing?
The answer too will be short and very clear. It is possible to see blueprints, but there is a counter question. What will it give you? As sensible people, you should realize that the blueprint, should it have a stamp or something else on it? Blueprints are just blueprints. You can take the blueprints of any factory and say it's a gold mine factory. If it's a matter of mistrust, then it would make more sense for you to come here, meet in person with the designers to see. Because teams of specialists from different fields work on piles of documents. Therefore, I am ready to devote my time to it and invite all doubters to come and meet, and we will demonstrate everything to you. Because from my point of view, an online demonstration would be unconvincing. It's all there, but what good is looking at the blueprint? A factory project is not a house project on a checkered paper. It starts with selecting a site to build the factory. This stage has already been passed. Then geological surveys are conducted, soil samples are taken to determine physical and mechanical parameters. Then the builders do their work. All of this is accompanied by projects, reports, and other papers with numbers. Then the economists do the math, then the logisticians do the math, then they do the estimates. Ultimately, a full-size factory project is a big stack of documents from various related fields. I just don't know what to show you from all of this. So if you have any doubts, come here and let's meet. We are completely open and transparent. We will be happy to take you around, show you everything, and tell you all about it.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. What are the plans for 2023 and how likely are they to be accomplished?
The main plans are related to the process of quarry design. It is ongoing and almost complete. We were supposed to get it in mid-March. Today is the end of July. The human factor, what can we do? We have already counted 8 options for the quarry. I can't remember who I told. I have DAO ARK people around me, and everyone asks questions and I answer them endlessly. I apologize if I am repeating myself. However, we were given 8 quarry options to consider so that we as owners could decide what would be most cost effective for us. We also have contractual agreements with organizations that are designing the factory. A group has already been sent and we have determined the location of the factory. It's not an easy task. The location is high up in the mountains. I won't burden you with technical details. We have determined a location for the factory, and archaeologists have already been there to determine that there are no archaeological values. It's a multifactorial process. Even the Ministry of Culture is involved in the process. As funny as it may seem, the archaeological research also involves the Ministry of Culture, which should provide its approval that they have no objections to the excavation and construction of the factory. We are currently preparing a visit by specialists who conduct an assessment of the impact on the environment. It's a whole team that will live there for a month and count bugs, ants, spiders, flowers, berries, and ponder on how our activity will affect the whole thing. Also, a visit by specialists to take soil samples for geological surveys at the construction site of the factory is being prepared. Those are the plans for this field season. This will definitely be done because the season is short in the mountains and we don't have neither moral opportunity to waste precious time, nor material. Because we also have you, we are responsible to you. The plans for this year, the final completion of the design of the quarry part and the formation of a large part of the project for the factory. The final completion of the factory is planned for the next year. By the end of next year, I hope the factory will be built. We were faced with the question of what kind of factory to build, 1 million tons per year or less. After careful study, it was decided to make a 1,000-ton factory, 1,000 tons a day, 1/3 of 1 million a year. Such factories are built within 6 months practically because a plant receives a pre-order. A plant manufactures everything. They come and they build. By far, we see China as the most likely partner because they have quite a lot of experience in this field. They have high speed. Modern China is high tech. They will also come and build everything themselves. All we would have to do is to adapt the project to local legislation. We also considered cooperation with Russian companies, but we will most likely opt for a Chinese company. There is no final decision yet. We are doing everything according to the plans of the overall project. We influence it in a positive way and execute it.
Thank you. Here in the comments, Alexei asks, Yuri, is it possible to contact you personally and talk about the launch of the factory?
Yes, of course. But I have a favor to ask you. If you want to ask questions, it's better to do it in a public way because if every participant writes in a private message asking how's it going, I won't have any free time to do the project. If you have a very practical question, then yes, of course. I am willing to contact you either way, but please make up your mind so that time can be invested wisely.
Okay, then let's move on to the next question. What is the current valuation of the company and what is it based on? Are there any major players and investors showing interest in the company?
Let's split the answer to that question in half. Yuri, you're talking about the major players. I'm talking about valuation. Look, we have a report from a professional accounting firm that does business valuations that shows that we have grown by 5 to 7 times. This is a so-called paper estimate based on different estimation systems for the amount of precious metals in ore compared to other companies. We have to realize that it would be incorrect to look at this estimate and say that we are worth exactly that much, because any product on the market is worth as much as the buyer is willing to pay for it. Are we worth more? Yes. We did this valuation in order to relocate and to understand how much the audit agencies value us and what we need to start from. We ordered a valuation from an audit agency and received a stack of papers. That valuation was around $180 million to over $200 million. I don't remember the exact numbers of this valuation because it was a long time ago, in January, February. After that, we took a breather. If we were to start selling, we would do an up-to-date valuation today. We decided to postpone the question of the relevance of the valuation until the moment when we relocate and start selling part of the stake or bringing in strong partners. We are definitely worth more. On paper, the valuation estimate is 5 to 7 times more. As a matter of fact, it's $200 million plus. As of today, there are practical interested parties who have come forward with partnership proposals. Yuri, the floor is yours.
I want to add about the valuation of the company. I would like to be clear about what an exchange valuation is and what an industrial valuation is. Exchange valuation is the value of a company on the stock exchange or share valuation. On the stock exchange, all sorts of people down to housewives can buy one or as many shares as they wish. These people don't understand anything about the process. They are investing in the hope that the value of these stocks will rise. It happens or it doesn't happen. The price may be different. It fluctuates up and down, but in general, all these people have no involvement in the life of the enterprise. They are also prepared for risks and know that stocks can collapse in value. Even a super capitalized company that's on everyone's radar can fall 1,000% over a short period of time. We all have that experience. But did they lose their assets at that point? No, they didn't. Assets had their value and continue to have it. I am saying this because the stock exchange value and industrial value of assets are different things. Because industrial value is the money that real players in this market are willing to pay in order to acquire a company with all its tangible assets, but also with all the risks, to work, to continue to invest, so that all this continues to bring profit. The people who bought the stocks don't deal with anything. Shareholders can make any money from stock growth and receipt of dividends, only thanks to those who do the physical management and bear the risks. I am just explaining the logic behind why there is a stock valuation and an industrial valuation and why these valuations are different. The stock valuation is always higher because buying a stock and doing nothing, you kind of get something for free. It is clear that you risk your money, but you then do not do any labor and just get bonuses and capitalization growth. And industrialists take a real risk because a factory, a quarry is a whole life, big and substantial. Evgeny rightly said that a company is actually worth as much as people are ready to pay for it. You are paid a certain amount for stocks. In life, they pay you in other amounts. On the subject of interested parties, they have been there all along. We acquired the company in June. Already in September, I was offered cash in an amount that is significantly higher than the purchase price. Trust me. If I were the sole owner of this company, I could have done this deal in 3-4 months and would be quite pleased. To get that kind of margin in that time frame would be great. This process is ongoing on a permanent basis. I am approached by people on a regular basis. Someone offers to buy the company, someone offers to flood us with money until the first profit is made, foot all expenses without exception, and get a share in the company for it. As sensible people, we consider everything that is offered to us. If we decide to enter into such a partnership, we will share our stakes, not yours. Your stakes will not be involved in any way, will not suffer in any way, but on the contrary, will only be strengthened because the enterprise will have a powerful flow of financing. Not later, when we have the balance sheet reserves and the design for the factory and go to the bank to get a loan. There is a hypothetical risk that we will be turned down and have to take a loan from another bank. To avoid running in such circles, we will perhaps decide on a partnership. There are at least 2 directions in which we are being offered partnerships today. We are considering them, but we have no great desire to dive into it because a new partner with a significant stake in the company is of course a risk. Because they are strangers to us, they may have their own vision of processes. Common plans will need to be negotiated with them. In general, that means risks. Our initial scheme is to borrow for the construction of the factory from a bank or fund from 4% per annum, but this is a more complicated and longer way. We are all good, we are on track. We don't have a need to sell anyone a stake, but we are looking at whether this action will be strong. If we, as the main beneficiaries, don't get greedy today, maybe the whole community will benefit. Maybe we will sell some of the stake and that will make the whole enterprise more solid. So far, that is what's happening in this area. We consider all the proposals very calmly from the point of view that we have no need to enter into a partnership. But the offers are coming in and that's nice. And generally people see the value. You know what's going on in the market today and everyone wants to set anchor, if you speak the professional jargon, go into possession with primary wealth. Fiat money is a very shaky story, especially shaky in the current situation, whereas familiar assets, which we are all co-owners of, which I congratulate all of us on, is a good story. Everyone realizes this, especially rich people. They are looking for good projects, but there is a catastrophic shortage of good projects. I simply have a lot of knowledge in this field, so I know how things are. So we are not short of offers.
Thank you. I also want to tell you that about a month ago, when we had an internal meeting within ARK Investment, we raised the question to maybe consider partially selling the stake of Gold Karator. Just informing you so you have this information. Not leading to anything, not saying anything, there simply are such reflections.
It's attractive enough to sell a portion of a share to receive dividends, but it's important to realize that the value of a share in September is absolutely not equal to the value of a share in the future. Every physical action, I'm not talking now about visits by archaeologists and Ministry of Culture, I mean building a road and a factory, supplying equipment, it all affects capitalization. Especially when the factory starts producing, when the metal starts coming out at the end of the supply chain, it's a different story. Everyone is free to choose here, of course, but taking into account the geopolitical situation in general, you need to understand what you will do with the money when you get it. You will not put them under your pillow, I hope. This is the most unreasonable of all options. You are going to go invest it somewhere. The question is where? Into some enterprise again, someone else's business, but do you have enough competence to figure it out? I think you understand the logic. That money continues to be invested here, or you will need to reinvest it, but in some other business, accordingly bearing new risks. And the big question is whether the new business will bring the same marginality as this gold business. The question contains the answer. I was asked if we should sell this enterprise early. I tell them the same thing. Put yourself in my shoes. Let's assume I sell and have a ton of money on hand. What do I do with it next? I will invest it because money is rapidly depreciating in value. I would rather invest in myself, watching capitalization grow, receiving dividends, than in people I have no control over. This is a short logical reflection for increasing mindfulness. It's easy to cash out, but then you have to think long and hard about what to do with that money. Sorry, maybe that was an inappropriate digression, but once upon a time, many years ago, that thought was a sobering one for me.
Very useful information, thank you. I suggest we move on to the last question for today. What will be the process for selling the stake at the end of the project? When is the project even expected to be completed?
That strategy that we originally had was to skim the cream. That's what's at the top. In this type of skarn deposit, the concentration of metals is higher at the top. Mining almost from the surface is much more profitable than mining from lower layers because it is technically easier and the content is higher there. Our goal is to maybe operate the quarry for 3 years, extract the tastiest, richest content from there, and then sell whatever is left after that, making tons of money. Initially, the horizon was considered to be 5-6 years, including the design phase, operations, and final sale. This will be largely determined by the geopolitical situation because swapping gold for fiat money in 4 years may prove to be the worst possible solution. It may seem attractive today, but in 4 years it may seem like a very bad idea to us because gold will be the best money ever. No one knows with certainty. I cannot say it will be like this in no other way, but that's the original plan. On the whole, I think I answered the question.
Thank you, yes. Very well. I see a question in the chat room. When and how can I sell the stocks?
First of all, a huge request until the relocation happens. Please don't sell the stocks. Because if the beneficiaries change, we have to start the process all over again. This is one of the very serious reasons for delays in that very relocation, because every time we change beneficiaries, we have to submit documents to the ministry with 30 days for review. Please be patient. Let's change the incorporation country, then you can even sell everything, even resell to each other 3 times a day. There will be no problems with it. If it's very pressing, then by all means you should do so, but if it's possible, this is my personal request. Please don't, in the interest of the whole community. Not just our self-interest, but the entire community is dependent on your decisions of personally each and every one of you. Please bear with us until the relocation process is complete.
All right, from the bottom of my heart, I thank Yuri Kovalenko and Evgeny Khodchenkov for taking the time to answer all of our questions, for giving us very detailed, useful, clear, transparent answers.
I want to show you the land of DAO ARK once again. Look, what an unreal beauty. I know not everyone was here. It's fantastically good here. Next year there will be another event in Karator with even more people. I invite you all, come join us. I bid you herewith farewell.
If there are any more closing words from Evgeny and Yuri, please go ahead. If not, that brings us to the end of the meeting.
Just a few words. I want to say that the action we have been in over the last year is the most amazing thing that has happened to me in my business career.
A situation where 100 people from different fields can come together, not connected in any way. Entrepreneurs, wage earners, investors. We had very different people. Even the founder of Sky Ing had breakfast with us at our table. The guys made 10 billion in revenue.
We went to the bathhouse together last night.
I will even put it like this. Yesterday we steamed in the bathhouse together. Absolutely the most interesting people come to us. Their level is growing more and more every year. A very amazing digital nomads movement that Ivan and I once wanted to do on Bali. But on Bali, all the regulatory agencies were banning everything, saying big events cannot be held. In Kyrgyzstan, all of this developed quite differently. I would not believe if I were told a couple years ago that we will have 600 people who are united by ideas, by money, by songs around the campfire, who are building their settlements. There are 2 locations being considered. A Russian one, Teranimus in Krasnodar region. The tour was in June, 25 people. In Kyrgyzstan, there it's 100 plus people. We have locations coming up in Russia, in Kyrgyzstan. I hope this trend will keep developing. Who would have told me that we would be a group that not only invests together, but also comes together, brings scientists, entrepreneurs, creative people and politicians, that we would build our own settlements. I would not have believed that it is even possible, that it is possible to unite people by a single idea. What's happening is grandiose. Let's watch it together and get great dollar returns. I think what we are doing is very promising and interesting. Thank you for being a part of this process.
I also want to thank you all for your trust. It is a pleasure to be in such a team. Once again, I invite you to meet in person more often. Honestly, when things seem to be getting worse and worse all over the world, there is a very clear sense in our community that every day is getting better and better. The perspective is endless, the potential is enormous. We will work for the common good. Believe me, we do everything we can to speed up the result, make it as substantial and high quality as possible. Thank you again for your trust, and see you again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye then.
All the best.